This is the Halftime Show with Omar Al-Duri on Pulse 95.
Sure is that time. It's the Halftime Show with Omar Al-Duri. I am your host, covering everything sport, international and local. We cover everything from gut health, mental health, and how important the brain is on the body. It's an honor to have this man on the show today. Mark Doherty is a well-respected coach. He focuses on nutrition. It's not just dieting. It's not just programming. It's planning. It's a lot of science behind it, a lot of education, and that's why I'm going to get him on the show today. His holistic approach and scientific approach has earned fantastic reviews, not just from this community, but from around the world. So make sure you stay tuned for more on the only place to be at 3, the Halftime Show on Pulse 95.
This is the Halftime Show with Omar Al-Duri on Pulse 95.
It sure is that time. It's the Halftime Show with Omar Al-Duri. I am your host, covering everything sport, international and local. Thank you very much for tuning in today, and hope you're having a blessed day wherever you're tuned in around the world, whether it's 95 FM, pulse95radio.com, our app, Sharjah Broadcasting Authority, or even if you're watching us live on YouTube. Thank you very much for connecting with us today. You know what? It's got this theme today, and it has been for the last week now as Ramadan has kicked in. There's been plenty of questions about training, nutrition. Well, I happen to get one of the best in the business here on the show today. Mark Doherty is on the show. Mark, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
How you doing?
Thanks for having me.
You know what, Mark? Something you just told me off air now. You've done plenty of podcasts, so much content, but this is your first radio experience.
Yeah, lots of podcasts, lots of seminars, but I've never been on the radio.
Yes.
So my first time.
Fantastic. How are you feeling?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm looking forward to. I always love speaking about nutrition.
Yeah.
It's my total passion since long, nearly 3 decades ago, and I continue to study to this day.
Yeah.
So yeah, something I love talking about.
Fantastic. And now I'm sure on everyone's lips is nutrition in Ramadan. Now, throughout the year, intermittent fasting has been a practice many do.
Yeah.
But during the holy month of Ramadan, I'm sure you get asked this all the time. How does one look after their body in Ramadan?
Yeah. So the way I approach nutrition, not just from a scientific point of view, but it's also my priority is optimal health with each and every client. And it's funny because when I got to Dubai 6 years ago, people says, "Oh, Mark, you don't know how it is to do intermittent fasting." I actually, maybe like 12 years ago, did a case study on intermittent fasting where I put myself and 9 men on it to try it out. Now, the only difference was the times, and obviously we were allowed to have water during that time.
Yeah.
So I quickly picked up clients from the get-go when I got here. And my approach is I very much believe in individuality. Everybody's different.
Yeah.
So I like to communicate and get lots of biofeedback from every client and ensure that they're taking the right approach that's right for them.
Yeah.
So a couple of things that I've seen that I feel is not optimal. You'll hear me mention that word a lot.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that word.
Yeah.
Define optimal.
So for me, it's basically doing the correct procedures that give you the best results.
Nice.
So even though I hear people saying, I've done this before and it's worked for me, but is there a better approach? Is there a better way? And what does the science tie into? My science, that when I say I'm evidence-based, it just doesn't mean it's the scientific literature. There's 3 things to being evidence-based as a coach. Is number 1 is the current scientific literature, which I say I still study. I'm doing a postgrad in performance nutrition because I want to move in the professional sports world in the US. Number 2, which is very important, is preference of the client. What foods they like, how can you fit it into this diet. I'll speak a lot about rigid dieting and restricted dieting compared to flexible dieting, and why I'm not a fan of rigid restricted dieting. And number 3, one of the most important things is the experience of the coach. So how can practice meet the science? And that just comes with the more people you work with, the more things you pick up. So with Ramadan, the things that I address. Now, when people come to me to get results, they're not a sedentary person. They're someone who trains and exercises.
Is active.
I almost think of all my clients as like athletes. They don't have to compete to be called athletes. But if they train on a regular basis, they do their cardio, they do the weight training, or they do some other sport, they don't have to be professional at it. Their nutritional needs differ from that of a sedentary person. So when it comes to Ramadan and training, the first thing I seen a lot of guys doing was basically doing training before iftar, weight training, dehydrated. So when I say what is optimal, obviously training dehydrated is not optimal. Even a 1 to 2% dehydration rate can cause a huge negative effect on strength. Also, you've got a bigger chance of getting injuries and stuff like that. So basically, I prefer my clients. Now, it doesn't happen with them all, and this is where I'm going to talk about individuality. So my clients will come and say, right, Mark, what is best? How can I achieve my results?
Yeah.
My first question is, what are you looking to achieve? Are you looking to push a fat loss phase? A lot of people, because they know Ramadan, restricted eating, like intermittent fasting, they feel that it's a good time to push a fat loss phase because they're going to eat less calories.
Yeah.
And the problem is what I see people doing, not just in Ramadan, but in general, I see people high intensity cardio, lots of circuits, weight training, and on low carbohydrate diets. So they're not matching their nutrition with their training, which is hugely important.
How do you match your nutrition with your training? So
basically, it's funny because my post-grad that I'm studying at the minute, I'm doing a case study on a lady who's an elite marathon runner. And there's a thing called restrictive energy deficiency. And that means over time, she's not feeding her body the right nutrients or right calories. So for example, if you're doing low intensity cardio, like you're walking and stuff like that, your body will utilize more fat stores, it'll oxidize fat. If you're doing high intensity training, or you're doing lots of circuit training, Metcon training, performance, I know you box, your body needs glycogen and it will use carbohydrates as fuel. So when I take a client and I talk about optimal and how can I improve their performance or how can I help their fat loss, I want to make sure I meet their hydration needs, their nutrient needs, their carbohydrates, maybe around the training window. Is that important? And usually for fat loss, the most important thing I tell people for fat loss is you're only trying to maintain lean muscle tissue. So most of the people who do a hard push, what I call, for a fat loss diet in Ramadan are eating low calories. And there's a lot of information on aggressive, I would call it aggressive dieting. Now, lots of people say, is aggressive dieting wrong? Is it going to affect your BMR? And the scientific research shows it doesn't. But there's very important considerations to take into account when you're doing this type of aggressive dieting. Is you want to ensure you're getting the right protein content to maintain muscle tissue. You want to actually decrease the volume of your training. So if you enjoy doing lots of HIIT training, I know one of my clients, Essa, loves his spinning classes. I've asked him to stop. So he's basically decreasing his cardiovascular training down to more low intensity and even maybe just 2 days a week. His weight training, what we're doing there is instead of him doing 4 or 5 sets, lots of volume, lots of supersets, we're focusing on load, meaning maintaining strength. Now, you don't necessarily have to beat record and beat PBs, but you do have to keep your strength up. So I'll give you an example of one of my fat loss clients and how I operate. Once iftar is upon them, they will basically hydrate first. We'll use water and some electrolytes. The reason for electrolytes, if you're going to the bathroom all day, you're losing them during the day. So that's one thing you definitely want to replace. It's better mix than water alone. And then, like, dates are a great thing. They're eating a lot here, so I use them because they're like faster burning carbohydrates because we want to think about replenishment of glycogen. And then they will have potentially a really small meal. And a meal, the reason being is because after that long fast, their digestive systems aren't going to take in a large meal anyway. So the small meal will be something like maybe white rice, some chicken, something that's easy to digest, probably low in fiber. And then they're ready to train about an hour and a half later. Now, it's all about when you're looking to lose fat. I have a rule. I still keep calories to a certain point. People, oh, Mark, I want to push my calories to 1,500. I don't do it. I basically don't believe in going below what's roughly your BMR in calories.
Which is your basic metabolic rate.
Yeah, right. Basic metabolic rate, or it's called resting metabolic rate. And it's approximately, to work that out, it's approximately 10 multiplied by your weight in pounds, even your lean muscle tissue. So that's one rule I have. And then when they start training, I always focus on, right, how can I help them perform better during training? So obviously electrolytes, or the great things invented for sports people, sports drinks.
Yeah.
So you can sip on a sports drink that contains carbohydrates, a fast-acting carbohydrate, that will help your performance during training. And then they're ready for their larger meal. So most of my clients will have like lots of carbs, lots of protein, probably around the 10 o'clock time.
Right.
Then they'll probably go for more like a snack base around 12 o'clock. Like I'm a fan of Greek yogurt. I'm a huge fan of whey protein. It's convenient, easy to use. I'm a huge fan of keeping fruits in the diet. And then in the morning, if they're willing to eat, which I prefer them to do that, I will have more a mixed meal with carbohydrates, protein and fat. Someone that I digest slowly during the day.
Okay, nice. Okay, right. So I don't want to interrupt you there. There's so much I want to ask you. I'm going to take a short break and we'll be right back after the break on the only place to be at 3, the halftime show on Pulse 95.
This is the Halftime Show with Omar Al-Duri on Pulse 95.
It sure is that time. It's the Halftime Show with Omar Al-Duri. You know, I was at the gym today and someone was asking me, how are you going to keep this energy up the whole way? Easy. When I have fantastic guests like Mark Doherty in the building, it's easy to get the energy back up. And especially though it's Ramadan and we're feeling the energy, feeling the vibes, it's good to keep you guys also entertained, right? And talking about entertainment, we've got a riddle in Ramadan, so I'm going to have to ask this riddle. Let us know if you have the answer. Text us on 4215 to Salat or do. The riddle is, what's inside and outside gives you light but doesn't let you hide? What is that? Let us know. Okay, so I'm going to say that one more time. What's inside and outside gives you light but doesn't let you hide? What? There you go. Okay, on the show today, Mark Doherty is on the show and he's someone that specializes in nutrition, and I get a lot of questions, especially on the halftime show, regarding nutrition, gut health, mental health, all sorts of stuff. So it's only right to have him on the show. Mark, we were talking about optimal health. We were talking about what to eat in Ramadan in the first segment. We were talking about your clients and the examples you have. But let's focus now on common mistakes made. A lot of the times we think we're doing the right thing, but we're not sure if we're actually there until we see someone else making that mistake. What do you often see as the main mistakes in fueling the body?
Basically, it's as I said at the start, it's not matching the correct nutrition with the training. So basically, and this is something I see all the time in gyms because I still do a little bit of personal training. So I see females lifting lighter weights, doing circuit-based training, higher intensity-based training, basically battering themselves into the ground, and at the same time eating very low carbohydrate diets, keto diets, which I'm not a personal fan of.
And not sustainable either.
Yeah, definitely. So one of the things I talk about, I'm going to go off on little tangents here and there, is rigid, restricted dieting versus flexible dieting.
Yes.
So when I talk about optimal health, it's not just physiological health I talk about, it's also psychological health.
Excellent.
And developing a great relationship with food. So in the past, I used to work for a company called Body Type Nutrition a long time ago in the UK, a guy called Ben Comer. And I was their body composition specialist who was meant to deal with contest prep competitors. But at the time, I got a lot of females who were put on really restricted diets. And they were almost developing a bad relationship with food. Some were actually almost borderline eating disorders, almost. So we had to correct that, meaning now if someone gets a eating disorder, they need to see some people like psychiatrists. So I work with scope. If there's a certain range that I can't deal with, I will refer people out.
Yeah.
So back to the flexible dieting and rigid dieting. Rigid dieting is like plans that we used to joke about it, called the chicken and broccoli diets. And basically, flexible dieting is including foods you enjoy on a daily basis. So I always, on my Instagram, I talk a lot about the 80-20 rule. Right. Meaning 80% one ingredient foods, 20% food you enjoy on top of that. So I don't look at any food as good food, bad food.
Right.
I look at some food that's got more nutrients, and some food it's just we enjoy eating. So we still want to, when we talk about flexible dieting, it's not the same as it's if it fits your macros.
I was just going to ask you, some people might confuse that with macronutrients and fitting your macros.
Yeah, so I do not like that, because basically if it fits your macros, it's basically your protein and fit anything you want in there. Flexible dieting, for me, in my opinion, and what I try and educate clients on, is eating 80% one ingredient foods. Because the reason being, we still want to ensure that we're getting not just the correct macronutrients, which I'll talk about in a minute, but we want to make sure we're getting the correct micronutrients as well. We want to get our vitamins or minerals. We don't want any deficiencies in that area. We want to make sure fiber, when you just mentioned the word gut health, is a great one, because I hear so many people talking about gut health and supplements. And the first thing I would like to look at a client's diet is, are they actually getting enough fiber in the diet? And usually they don't. And when we talk about micronutrients, one of the things I always incorporate when someone is on a calorie deficit and eating less food, therefore less potential in nutrients, I will definitely put them on like a vitamin mineral supplement.
Okay.
Just as an insurance policy. I've read many times that it's not needed, it's not used, but it's cheap, doesn't cost a lot of money, so you're better utilising it anyway. So I'll do that with clients. So back to matching the training and nutrition, I am a fan of keeping carbohydrates in the diet. So I'm going to tell you a little rule. If calories are equal and protein's consistent, and I'll talk in a minute about why protein's is probably the most important macronutrient. If calories are equal, protein is consistent. It doesn't matter if you go high carb, low fat, vice versa, low carb, high fat, you'll still get the same results as far as fat loss is concerned. So what we look at then is, what does the client actually prefer doing? What do they prefer eating? So obviously, if someone enjoys and loves their carbs and you put them on a ketogenic diet, you'll have a complete disaster waiting to happen.
Right. And
of all the consultations I've done over time, and people go, keto worked for me, like the reason being is because I've seen so much damage it has caused. People rebounding to the point where they are afraid and have a terrible relationship with food. They're afraid to eat carbohydrates. So then I have to rebuild people's trust in food. And I get lots of clients on that basis. Now, I always say, and I try and preach this, I teach people how to diet and to essentially get away from dieting. Meaning, everybody can diet, but diets fail over and over again. So why is that? So number one is people do not know what to do during diets. I talk a lot about diet breaks. And number two, people don't know what to do after the diet.
What's reverse dieting?
So it's an exit strategy.
Okay.
So when you diet, your body goes through metabolic adaptation. And you'll have some physiological changes, like your hunger hormones, leptin and ghrelin. Leptin is the hormone that tells you I'm full, I don't need to eat anymore. Ghrelin is the opposite, tells you, right, I'm hungry, feed me more. Come the end of the diet, ghrelin goes up, leptin goes down. So hunger levels are pretty high. So what happens at the end of the diets is people don't actually go back to maintenance calories. They actually eat in a surplus. And this is the problem. They put all the weight back on really fast. So a refresh diet is a step-by-step approach on how you take those calories back to maintenance calories. Now, some of the research says that you're better just taking someone straight back to maintenance calories. There's no physiological difference, which is to a certain point true. But the reason I use refresh dieting, if I had a female client and spent 10 years trying to diet on and off, frustrated with weight loss, and I bring them down to a certain point, at the end of the diet, their calories will be lower than at the start, obviously. So then I want to slowly build their food back up, because it psychologically helps them in their mind. So week 1 or 2, if I add a couple hundred calories, sometimes they actually lose some body fat when they're on a refresh diet at the start. Not because it's magical, but because you've got things like NEAT. NEAT is your non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So another thing that happens with metabolic adaptation is you actually slow down. You tend to move less. So when you start feeding someone a couple of hundred extra calories, sometimes they move more, they fidget more, they walk more, they get more activity. And then you've got the energy balance, the equation changes, so you're still losing some body fat in the initial phases. Now, refresh dieting isn't to help you lose weight. It's actually, you want to bring your weight back, or your calories back to maintenance. But again, for me, it's just a good psychological approach.
Yeah, interesting, really interesting. I'm going to ask you a question about how you improve the relationship with nutrition right after the break. Coming up, we're going to play some Khalid for you, and it's called Silence, and we'll be right back after the break. Enjoy, folks.
This is the Halftime Show with Omar Al-Duri on Pulse 95.
It sure is that time. It's the Halftime Show with Omar Al-Duri. I'm your host, covering everything sport, international, local. Hope you're having a blessed month, a blessed week, and an even better day today. And I'm so glad you're tuned in with me on the Halftime Show. Could be anywhere in the UAE, could be even be across the world if you're like Florin in New York, Masoud in India, Shayma in Tunisia, or even Safe in London. God, we got so many people, or in the UAE, of course, the people that normally tune in Sharjah and everywhere across the UAE. It's great to have you guys on board. We have a riddle for you today. What's inside and outside gives you light but doesn't let you hide what? Let me know if you have the answer. Text us on 4215 Ittasalat or do. And also, because it's a Ramadan special, we've got none other than Mark Doherty here on the show. Very well-respected nutrition coach, someone I would love to work with actually in the future. He's got so much information. If you caught the first two segments, you're probably like writing notes down. I know if I was there watching us on YouTube or listening to us on the podcast, Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, I'd be making notes because I'd have so many questions for him. We spoke about optimal nutrition. We spoke about matching the training to nutrition, but also matching the nutrition to the training, which was really, really key in setting your goals. And also, one of the things I wanted to ask you, Mark, was you don't like the term diet, and I understand why, because it has a short connotation. The relationship is what you're trying to build with the person and their nutrition. How does one improve their relationship with their nutrition? Okay,
so we use certain words are used like diet, cheat meals, cheat days, things I absolutely hate and despise. What I try and do right away is tell people, look, there's no good food, there's no bad food, but explain the 80-20 rule. Now, the problem is like things, and there's lots of misinformation on social media and TV, demonizing sugars, don't eat sugar, terribly unhealthy for you, but you can incorporate everything into your diet. So one of the things I always do when I do a consultation with a client, I will basically find out all the foods they enjoy. So I might have, for example, a female client, I love bread, I love cheese, but I know I can't have them. I go, why can you not have them? So I do initial non-prescriptive meal plan, an example. I don't like people following meal plans long term. But the reason I do that is because I want to show people how you can implement foods you enjoy into the diet and still get results. And not just fat loss results, but most importantly, improve your optimal health. For me, when I do seminars talking about fat loss, I talk about optimum health. They go hand in hand together. Obviously, if I had a man who was 40% body fat and I help that guy get to 14% body fat, we're going to have huge beneficial health markers improving, blood markers improving, cholesterol improving, stuff like that. So dieting is only a small part of the puzzle. So how I help people with better relationship with food is, number one, is I closely monitor people. It's very important. They need assessment, close assessment, and they need support. So basically, people think, oh, go to market, get a meal plan, or you'll get check-ins once a week, but it doesn't work like that. I'm basically in contact with my clients on a daily basis via WhatsApp. Nice. Because everybody has an individual journey. Everybody has questions. I'll give you one example. I did a call today, and the lady mentioned one of my ex-clients, Natasha. Natasha had a terrible relationship with food last year. Then when she realised that we can include food she enjoys into the diet, she was absolutely shocked. The main thing for me is calories first, protein second. Protein is, like, people think protein is just for building muscle. It's not. Protein's for your immune system. It's the building blocks of the body. It's for your cells, your hair, your skin. So protein's essential. So as long as you hit those calories and protein, it doesn't matter what happens to carbs and fat, they can fluctuate.
Does it get more complicated now with all the different types of nutrition plans, or let's say, for example, veganism or vegetarian? A lot of people struggle to match their protein with that. Or is that just maybe a lack of knowledge or education in that?
Completely what it is. And what I tell my clients, what I try and do is I try and educate people. So people come and go, oh, I want to become a vegan, I want to be a vegetarian. And the reason I ask, my first question is, why do you want to do that? And because I want to be healthier. So people have misconceptions that you're going to be healthier being vegan. And what happened was, some of the studies a long time ago, they compared vegan eaters to meat eaters. Right. And they found that the meat eaters had higher mortality rate. But a group of researchers came and looked at it, and it was an observational study. So observational shows doesn't show cause, shows correlation. And they had a look at who was the meat eaters they were checking up. So these guys were people who didn't train, people who smoke, drank, eat lots of processed food.
Yeah.
So then they did the research again, and they did this time meat eaters who buy in health food shops. So potentially people train, people didn't smoke, and there was no difference in mortality. So basically, I'm a huge fan of balanced diet, but I'm also a huge fan of preference. So if a client says, no, I'm going to be vegan, what you'll find is so many vegans and vegetarians out there are more deficient in nutrients. Because with vegans, what you have to watch is they might have a high carb intake, but they're missing their protein intake. They might be watching nutrients like vitamin B12, zinc, calcium. So it's really important that everything is planned together in a certain way. So for example, hitting protein, getting the right amount of amino acids, it might mean mixing the correct foods together. It might be incorporating some certain types of protein shakes, like there's lots of really good vegan protein shakes. I'm a fan of shakes. And also just having, it doesn't matter what type of diet, you want to make sure there's a wide variety of food in that diet to make sure you're getting the nutrients anyway as well.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, we're going to take a quick break now. Guys, there is a riddle for today. Make sure if you know the riddle, you send that through. What's inside and outside gives you light but doesn't let you hide what? Let us know, 4215 Itisalat or do. We're going to take a quick break, but before we do that, make sure you head over to the Pulse 95 Radio channel on YouTube. Like, subscribe, and share our content. And also, if you like a podcast, head over to our podcast, Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, and Anghami, and you can find all of our audios on there with all our fantastic guests. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back after the adhan. Enjoy, folks.
This is the Halftime Show with Omar Al-Duri on Pulse 95.
Yes, salam, welcome back to the Halftime Show. Ramadan special, and Ramadan Kareem to all my listeners and everyone here who's listening around the world, whether it's 95 FM, pulse95radio.com, our app, Sharjah Broadcasting Authority, even if you're watching the episode live on YouTube or catching up with us on the podcast as well. Some great questions coming in. I've got Mark Doherty, the nutrition coach here, and the specialist as well. And some great things, Mark, that you said. I'm going to jump straight into it because we're almost full time on the Halftime Show. Question coming in for you. Do you have suggestions for increasing protein intake for someone that struggles with eating meat and eggs for breakfast and trying to increase her protein but struggling with breakfast specifically?
This is actually a big one, a very common one with a lot of vegan clients who come to me. Like I tell people, like, you've got tofu, tempeh, corn meat, but some of them, that's not stuff that you want to eat for breakfast. So I would ask a couple of questions is, are you willing to incorporate a protein drink? Like a really good one is called Nucest. It's a great quality protein powder. And what you can do is not just necessarily make a shake. You can actually mix that into like oats. I'm a huge fan of oats. I'm mixing in some protein powder, mixing in some berries, even mixing in some flax seeds.
Nice.
Chia seeds.
Chia seeds, yep.
So then we're talking about a lot of variety and a lot of great nutrients in that meal alone.
Excellent.
So lots of my clients would probably do work along those lines, protein supplementation.
Excellent. And speaking about protein supplementation, AJ sends a message. He says, will our bodies unlearn getting protein from natural food if we use protein shakes all the time? So basically, if we rely on protein shakes to supplement the body, will the body be unfamiliar with the protein it gets from normal food?
Yeah, absolutely not. Because when you take it in, if you take something in your mouth like a protein shake, or if you take in a piece of chicken, your body's not going to go, oh, this is a protein shake. But it basically breaks it all down into amino acids. Yeah. And I wouldn't even look at protein supplements or whey protein, especially if you're not vegan. Whey protein is amazing. I wouldn't even look at it as a supplement. I look at it as a food substitute because it's made the same way cheese is made. Yes. So if you want to look at, would you class whey protein as a supplement, then you'd have to class cheese as a supplement.
Very good. Very good. Another question coming in here. With the current situation, there's been a huge emphasis on the importance of gut health. What foods would you recommend to promote a healthy gut?
Yeah. Another good one. So I see so much stuff, buy this supplement, buy that supplement. So the main factors that you want to look at for gut health is, number one, are you getting the right amount of fiber? Yeah. So fiber, you want probably 12 to 14 grams per every 1,000 calories. Okay. Or a good target's 25 grams a day. That's a huge one. The second one is, are you drinking enough water? Yeah. Another huge one as well. The third one is stress management.
Excellent.
So we didn't really talk too much about it. I'm a holistic approach. I don't believe just in nutrition and training. I also believe in mindset training. I believe in using breath work. I have a fantastic lady in Dubai, if anybody's interested in breath work. I've noticed a lot of people very highly stressed in Dubai, and the issue with their gut was high stress levels. And once we looked after that, and then you've got, like, if you've got a client with IBS, you might want to look at low FODMAP diet, but then that's just a special population then.
Yeah, and amongst gut health, a lot of people are talking now about probiotics.
Yeah.
What's your take on probiotics quickly?
I wouldn't necessarily jump to using them. I would.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I would potentially, because they have to study them. There's not enough research, and different probiotics, different strains will affect the gut in different way. So even the gut experts are researching this area. I use them on occasion, but not all the time. I may use them for clients with IBS. But first and foremost, before we supplement, I want to look at the food. I want to increase the variety of food. I want to make sure they're getting the right amount of fiber, water, stress management, everything we spoke to. And then after a period of a number of weeks, worst case scenario, if there was a huge gut area, then that would be then beyond my nutritional scope.
Yeah.
And then I would send them to a doctor to look at their gut.
Interesting. Last question. How do you assess your clients?
Okay, this is an amazing question because it's really important. So there's a few ways. So obviously all my work's online, so I'm going to assess through measurements, not body fat. I don't believe in the in-body machines. They're highly inaccurate. Measurements are a great one. Invasive, people can do it at home. I like clients weighing every day because I want to show them the fluctuations and what happens. And weight loss isn't linear. You'll see a zigzag, it goes up, it goes down, it goes across. And pictures. I've been looking at bodies a long time, over 28 years. So I can see a lot from pictures. And then most importantly, biofeedback from the client. I want the client to tell me how's their sleep. I want the client to tell me how's their performance in the gym. I want them to keep a food diary, and especially the first 3 or 4 weeks is crucial. Food diary, they write down when we go back to this gut health, is there any foods that they had discomfort 1 hour after eating? Because then we may need to do an elimination process. Like, it's crazy. Things like some people eat broccoli and they have issues with the gut. So, so really close attention to the client and get lots of feedback from them as well.
Excellent. Last question. You mentioned things are done online. Are you a fan of apps?
Yeah, so I'm a fan of, and I'll tell you this quickly before we go, I'm a fan of people not following meal plans because they're not sustainable long term. So I like to teach my clients flexible dieting. So over time, a client will be track their own food. So apps such as MyFitnessPal and Chronometer, there's a lot of inaccuracies, but that's something I like to educate my clients on. Apps, if we want to talk about the smart watches, I'm a fan of tracking steps because that's something we want to look at. NEAT, non-activity exercise. Non-exercise activity. So I want to do that. I want to look at that. But I am not a fan of clients tracking calories burned during exercise and eating those calories back because it's totally inaccurate. Sleep. I don't usually use sleep. I like to get feedback from a client and how they talk, and then and basically, so I personally don't use any apps to track sleep for clients.
And last but not least, where can we follow you?
So at the minute, I've got a website coming up with my fiance very soon. But at the minute, you'll get me on Instagram, and I put lots of information, educational information. It's on Mark_Doherty_coaching. You'll get me there. Any questions, and my WhatsApp number's there if anybody wants to catch up for any more detailed answers.
Fantastic. And that's your first radio show under your belt now.
Yeah.
How do you feel?
It felt like it went in 2 minutes.
That's always a good thing, great thing. And that is full time on the Halftime Show. Thank you very much, Mark, for spending your time with me, man. I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to come and spend it with us here. And if you did miss the show, don't worry, you can catch all the episodes on YouTube. Head over to the YouTube channel, Pulse 95 Radio, #Halftime Show, and you can see Mark and the whole show. And I'm sure you have more questions, so head over to his social media and send him those questions through. He was fantastic, Mark.
Thank you very much.
Fantastic. I'll see you guys very, very soon. Same time, same place every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday, 3 to 4. Peace and love, guys. I'm out.
If you liked this episode of The Halftime Show, drop a like and subscribe.
95.
Be sure to follow us on Instagram for all our daily updates and top stories.